Hello and welcome to the session where we'll be describing the creation of our learning pathways. So a learning pathway is a structured sequence of learning resources that will help a learner progress from perhaps not understanding a concept to having some competence or some mastery of that concept. And the concepts are the topics that exist within a course or a module that we might be teaching. And so we want to first create a concept scaffold. And once we have a concept scaffold developed, then we have the concepts that we are trying to teach, and then we can attach learning pathways to each of the concepts there. Then we'll also look at how that works from the perspective of the student. So to access our learning power, or rather our concept scaffolds, we can select it. So if we click on concept scaffolds, we'll see a list of the currently available scaffolds. So we're looking now at the one reactor design. And so you can create more scaffolds. Even for the same course, it's possible to have multiple concept scaffolds developed because perhaps there may be different perspectives about what the concepts actually are. So under reactor design, we can see here that we have these concepts: reaction kinetics, diffusion, convection, and so on. So let's say we want to create or we want to add to the list of concepts. So plug flow reactors, or PFR. That's a concept that we want to add. So here's the add concept button. And now we can see a new node on our list there. And the PFR is possibly influenced by reaction kinetics, diffusion, and convection. So, well, in fact, not so much convection if it's PFR, but in one of the, but let's just say for now. So to add connections, we go here, relations, and we want to go from. So the idea is the more fundamental concept points to the more applied concept. So reaction kinetics should point to the new concept of plug flow reactor. And I'm just going to refresh the page so that we have the link for that here. So there's plug flow reactor, and let's add that. And we can see now there's a link formed between reaction kinetics and plug flow reactors. As we said, convection also points to plug flow reactors. So let's do that. And possibly diffusion as well. So now we can see that some of these concepts are applied in two different ways. And this is something that sometimes we struggle to explain to students, that concepts are applied in multiple ways. And so it's necessary to transfer that knowledge across courses and modules and so on. But anyway, we've now defined a set of concepts and their relationships. And of course, the graph is really bigger than this. But for now, let's just keep to this. And let's say we were interested in reaction kinetics and developing a learning pathway for that specific concept. So if we click here, and let's just close the scaffold editor and now head over to learning pathways. So under learning pathways, we can see we already have some content here. So we can see chemistry perspective, chemical engineering perspective, and so on. So these have been already created for that concept of reaction kinetics. If we choose something else like diffusion, we can see there aren't any learning pathways defined. So let's go back to reaction kinetics. And in reaction kinetics, we can continue to think of different learning pathways. And you see from these titles, the learning pathway is an approach of arranging the resources according to the type of person who's studying that concept. So reaction kinetics, that has a different perspective when learned with a chemistry bias as compared with a chemical engineering bias. And also there might be language variance, there might be differences in learning style. So we can define multiple learning pathways for the same concept. But let's for now just choose the chemistry perspective. And you can see something's loaded up here. Let's zoom in and we can see a couple of, well, this is in essence a simple learning pathway. So we can look at the pathway editor here. And again, we have our basic concepts, so our learning resources actually. So we've created a list of learning resources here. And to find learning resources, we click here under resources, and there are different types of resources we can create. So number one, we can just look up links on the internet, and we can save the URL and create that as a learning resource, or we can create a document. So in the document editor, you can create a fully LaTeX rendered all the web types of things and create some interesting learning content there. Or you can create auto questions and so on. So you can attach different types of resources. And we won't go into any detail on this in this video. So each of those topics needs a separate video for doing these well. And the list of these things will grow over time. So here we then create a learning pathway by attaching resources into a structured list. And we can, again, define relationships among all these resources as well. So that's how we edit a pathway. So it's the similar approach to what we saw in the concept scaffolds. And now if we look at this from the perspective of a student, first of all, would choose from their list of registered courses. So let's say the student is doing reactor design. Then that looks up in reactor design what concepts are present. And so if the student wants to study reaction kinetics, then we have to figure out what type, which of these pathways is most useful to the student. And then it will load up the pathway there. And if we look in each of these, then that will load up the different resources that we've attached to that pathway. So for instance, we attached a web resource for one, or there was an automated test and so on. So the student would work through this list of things, and at the end, if they comprehend that concept well, then that's a form of a study resource that's effective. So that's the concept of a learning pathway. We can generate concept scaffolds, we define our pathway, and then the student can engage with that. We can integrate into the learning pathway self-testing and self-evaluation for the student to gauge whether or not they've comprehended that topic well enough. Thanks for listening.